And welcome in everybody to NFL Draft Combine Recap with the HighLowSports podcast. DJ joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. It's one of the most popular job interviews you will find in the entire world. Every year in February into early March, we got the NFL Combine. Dozens and dozens of young NFL hopefuls get a chance to show off their athletic skills, also affectionately known as the Underwear Olympics. And they have just wrapped up here on Sunday. And Kelsey, we definitely had some stars. We had some people that kind of just showed up, but to do the interviews, things we don't know as much about yet. But on the field, some guys showed up and they showed out.
Yeah, and it wasn't the big guys. Well, there was one that was there,
Hmm.
and I don't mean linemen, big guys. I mean the big stars. Most of the stars didn't really perform. We get this more and more every year. Most of the superstars going in the draft are afraid of tanking their stock at the Underwear Olympics, and you know, so be it for them. But there's some guys out here hungry, ready to play. And man, one of the big showcases, obviously, running back class this year being huge is what it was. That was fun to watch for the first time in a few years as well. And I'll be honest, that was an interesting group for me. Obviously, Jarquez Hunter being in there, and then quite a few other studs in that running back class. So yeah, no, it was a fun. I guess 5 days of this yet again, and that we got to be privy to, and that's not including the questions, answers, the weird things like what type of utensil can you be that they asked as well.
Absolutely. We got to see all the fun too. And I'm glad you mentioned the running back class. We got some standouts. We're going to pick some combine winners. There are no losers in this. We don't do that around here. This is only a support group for those who showed up. So we're going to go with some guys who might have risen their draft stock a little bit in the combine. I'll go and go first. And I love that you mentioned the running backs because this might be one of the best running back classes I could think of in recent memory, at least on paper. We know Ashton Genty is leading the way, the absolute stud that he is, but there's probably 7 other guys that you could reasonably put in the top 2 rounds, maybe even 3. There's a lot of firepower there. So I'm going to go with Jaden Blue, the running back out of Texas, for helping his stock a lot. Is he going to be in that top 3 category? Maybe not, but a 4.38 40-yard dash. Didn't do much on the field drills. He didn't really have to, I don't think. We kind of know what he is as far as that third down back, getting the ball in space, mismatch when you throw it to him. The speed matched the tape, and I think what you saw on tape, we already know what he could do in open space. Jaden Blue with one of the faster 40-yard dash times for a running back. I think, if not the fastest, the second fastest. And we already know what he could do on the field. Measurables, he could have been maybe a touch small, maybe, but like he's a 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old kid. He's going to, whether he likes it or not, there'll be a couple of pounds that come on here or there. So I think he stepped up and made himself one of those mid-round, maybe a really good teams like, wow, he could be a Jahmyr Gibbs-esque, but obviously not Jahmyr Gibbs. That was a top 12 pick. But could bring someone a lot of similar capabilities. So I really like Jaden Blue. I think he's going to climb up some draft boards, especially those who missed that run. That's going to include like Judkins, Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson. A lot of those guys, when they go, if you miss out on that one, I think Jaden Blue is going to be a very, very good player to get right at the end of that run.
You know, I like Jaden Blue. I'm glad you started out with a running back as well because I didn't want to be the only one that does this first. I do have my own running back that I thought performed really well. Has the fastest 40 time, by the way, at the combine this year. Tied for the fastest fourth fastest in the last since 2013. That is Basul Tootin, the running back for Virginia Tech, a 4.32 40. Led all running backs with a 40.5-inch vert, which for a running back nowadays, I didn't think really mattered until I watched it happen. And then I was like, okay, it matters now. I like this. This is going to be fun. A kid that seems to be kind of jumping up some boards throughout all of the postseason games, events, practices, whatever you will. And then the combine now. We'll see what he's able to do during his pro day. But yeah, Tootin from running for Virginia Tech. I mean, that's my standout here for running backs. I think he had a great performance, and it's not easy to jump 40.5 inches and then lead the 40 throughout it. And he didn't do the backflip, though, at the end of it. So I was a little disappointed. But, you know, he didn't do the backflip, and they all ended up in the end zone. So take some of that away from it. But 40.5-inch vert, you can do whatever you want at that point.
You're darn tootin'. He had a good day, that's for sure. That was an outstanding performance. With that kind of athleticism, I think he's going to climb up a lot of boards. Next, we're going to talk someone who's probably fringe a first-round pick already as it was, if not a pretty comfortable first-round pick. But now I think he might have propelled himself into the top 15, 16. We're going to go with Nick Emenwari, the safety from South Carolina. 4.38 40-yard dash at 6'3", 220 pounds, 43-inch vertical. Just, it's DK Metcalf at safety at this point. You finally got one of those absolute freaks playing on the other side of the ball. They compared him to Derwin James, who we all know how freaky he is. He outperformed Derwin James this combine, and his combine was actually pretty damn good and got him picked high too. If he's there, the Colts GM has a hard on for these type of athletes. He is gone. If he's there for the Colts, I will put it on paper now. He will not get past 14 depending unless they have a very change things in the back, change of heart in the front office, but this is the ultimate Colts GM type of player. And on top of that, I don't want to skip over the fact we talk about his measurables. He is a good player as it was. This might have just like propelled him even more. Like this was when Justin Jefferson ran his 4.3 something 40. We all knew he was a good player. Then we're like, oh, he can run too. And that kind of propelled him a bit. And I think what this did is it confirmed that Nick Emenwari is an absolute freak. Subline, he's the absolute demon that people use on Madden. That's like usually a 64 overall that they put at sub linebacker and run around and ruin the middle of the field. He's that kind of guy. Just he's actually also a really, really good player. So Nick Emenwari, I think, he might even beat Malachi Starks off the board, honestly, with those kind of measurables. Malachi Starks had a good combine week too. Nick Emenwari, I think, might end up being the first safety off the board with this skill set because they think, oh, in the red zone, let's go play one-on-one with DK so they can't throw a fade route. I don't know if I'd do it, but like you could, or go if they split out the tight end like Dalton Kincaid or Brock Bowers. Okay, go match up with him. So I think Nick Emenwari is I don't think he even gets to 20. I don't think he gets past 14 at this rate.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites for this one. I didn't pick him as my top 4, but he was just on the outside looking in. No, I do agree. Evan Worry has had a heck of a performance. But for me, my DB, well, one of my 2 DBs on my list that I really enjoyed was actually one of the Texas trios. That is Jahdae Barron, cornerback from Texas. Everybody expected him to run slow, ends up with a 4.40, and probably the best interview process, according to those that interviewed him, of all the players. Everybody talked about how high his IQ is, how much it just shone through, and if there's a superlative given for best interviews, I think he's the guy that gets it out of all the players in the draft combine this year. That's according to scouts and the reporters there on in Indy. So yeah, Jahdae Barron probably doing the most help with stock for Texas, who has been climbing again. Another guy climbing up boards in the offseason, leading up to the combine. Here he is in the combine, doing the best amongst two other specifically Texas Longhorns players that have done well during the combine, but easily the best performer for the combine guys from Texas, though. So Jahdae Barron, that's my first of the 2 corners on my list for sure.
I had Jahdae Barron as a top 10 player coming into the combine. I think he did a lot to lock that in. His versatility is very Brian Branch-esque, and now he showed some athletic ability to go with it. I like Jahdae Barron. Speaking of Texas, we're going to stick with Texas. We're going to have a common theme here. I'm going to put Matthew Golden, the receiver from Texas, as my next one. A 4.29 40-yard dash, the fastest this year from receivers. It's a receiver class without a clear number one. Ted McMillan is kind of the thought to be the number one right now. We didn't get a chance to see him here to perform out there. But I think Matthew Golden, we saw at Texas with him, Quinn Ewers, Isaiah Bond, what they were able to do throughout the year was explosive. He was smooth. When the offense needed something, it was always Matthew Golden that got the ball going. Every time they ran, we were watching him, especially in that playoff game. It was like, why can't they move the ball? Oh, Matthew Golden, they're good now. So I like Matthew Golden. I think has a very strong potential to be that first receiver taken off the board. And back-to-back years, a Texas receiver with the fastest 40-yard dash time amongst receivers. Just keeping the train rolling. But I like Matthew Golden I think his draft stock climbed a lot. I think he has a very good chance of being a first-round pick.
Yeah, no, I like that. I was going to go with my next corner, but I'm actually going to stay in the state of Texas here for my next guy. And I'm going to go with Shamar Stewart, the edge out of Texas A&M. Ended up with a 40-inch vert as a 267, not 285, like he was reportedly at Texas A&M at. So big weight loss there, which looks good for the scouts. And a 40-inch vert and a 10-11-foot broad jump, 10-foot 11-inch broad jump, and then a 4.640, which people expected to be much slower, especially since he was listed at 285. Running a 4.6, not the fastest, by the way, of any of the edges, because, well, there's just a guy out here running 4.3s and Eugene Asante, but whatever. It doesn't matter. This guy was already a fringe top 10 pick, and I think with this performance, probably locks himself up as top 10 money here with Texas A&M. He wasn't on my top 10 board. He was just on the outside looking in when we did this during the show last week. But that doesn't mean he's not getting closer, especially giving performances like this in the combine. We'll see what he does in his pro day, but yeah, for sure. Shamar Stewart kind of confirms it that he's going to be a top 10 pick in this draft with his performance. 90th percentile, that 40-inch vert, by the way. Absolutely insane.
I think he was like a 9.9 on RAS score too, like just short of perfect tens. He's outstanding, and he played this last year with such an injury and was still an impactful force too. Like someone's gonna be very happy getting Shamar Stewart, and I agree with you. He's not getting past. He's gonna be in the top 20. I don't see how. There's no way in heck he drops. They're gonna see just the talent. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take my chance with that. He's definitely going high. Last but not least for me, I'm gonna go with Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Ole Miss. That third quarterback spot is very much he's made a lot of ground on it recently. A lot of people, I think a lot of it's because they like the fact that his brother's named Diesel Dart and because of the look of Jackson Dart. But I think more people are getting familiar with his game, and I think he showed, especially on the deep ball drills, he was throwing a very good deep ball when they broke that part out. I think for throwing the ball wise, he did really well to stand out and close a little bit of that gap, become that third quarterback. Maybe he sneaks his way into the first round now too, especially towards the back end. I think he's done a lot. I think he showed a lot at the combine just from the throwing drill. So I'm gonna go with Jackson Dart as my last guy that climbed a little bit. I'm not saying he propelled himself. He's not in the Shador or Cam Ward conversation yet, but I do think he is locking himself into that third quarterback spot a lot. So I like what Jackson Dart did.
Yeah, one of the two quarterbacks that had an opportunity to really like put their name in that number three spot emphatically. Obviously, right now, Cam Ward, Shador Stewart, or Shador Sanders are your top two. But then that next two was will it be Dart? Will it be Quinn Ewers? Both had a pretty good performance, but I agree with you. I think Jackson Dart did have a better performance, if that's to say anything. Also, if anybody remembers the Last Chance U with Jason Brown, by the way, he literally put out a TikTok about this. Bring back centers for the quarterback drills. He thinks that centers should be in the quarterback drills, actually giving a snap to the quarterbacks. I get why they don't do it, but yeah, I'm all for it as well. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't often shout out Jason Brown for anything, but you know what, Coach? I'll shout you out for this one. But yeah, no, I agree with Jackson Dart for sure. And then my last is a guy who I think probably stamped his day one ticket here with a great performance, going to the cornerback role again, and probably sneaking himself into being a better corner than most people are expecting. That's Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. 4.2940. When it happened, it turned somebody's head. And that's the important thing to do if you're that day two fringe, day one, and in that fringe area right there, you're just looking to do something that puts you over the top. Well, he did that. 39.5-inch vert, quick feet, smooth hips in all the drills. It was obvious. It was talked about. It was noted on the broadcast, which doesn't often happen. When you're a corner, oftentimes it's like, all right, yeah, he's doing things. Some of the best corners who ever come to the combine don't get called out on the broadcast for how good they're looking, and he did. You know what? It's an impressive thing to do, and when you're fighting for that day one money, you got to do some kind of performance that's going to set you up. And that's why these underwear Olympics are so fascinating, is because you can have a 40-yard dash that does change the game for you. And I think that's what Maxwell Hairston did. Probably sneaking himself into that 3-4 corner range. We just literally named three of them in this conversation. He's the third one. And that's not including the top two and Malachi Starks as well. So yeah, give me Maxwell Hairston to sneak himself into day one here. He was probably one of the top performers for me as well. So
I love it when guys that are really good kind of confirm what we already know when they come to the 40-yard dash, but we don't know. I think Quinyon Mitchell was a lot of people liked him coming in. I obviously had him as the number one defensive player in the draft. We can go back and look, and I'm still mad at the team he went to. But you can look, once he ran the 40-yard dash, like, oh, that matches up with what I saw. It might even be a little bit better. So I think seeing things where it matches like that, not just someone who comes out of nowhere, it's like, oh, wow, he's fast. It's when you see someone who plays fast, then runs fast or runs like so that things kind of line up, because you don't always. Sometimes you can't always tell, especially with corners, when they're doing their job really well, you don't see how good they are really because they're
yeah.
not getting thrown at. So I like him too. I think if he's not a day one pick, he's going to be one of those really early number twos where people are like, hey, can I trade up? I kind of want to go get that guy.
Yeah, it's like we've seen it in a few drafts where it's like if they don't go corner, that corner run doesn't happen. Just like there's a receiver run in that first round, that tail end of the first round, especially. If we don't see that in day one, you're gonna see it day two, pick number 33, 34, 35 probably. And I got to assume Maxwell Hairston's gonna be playing his way in that day. It was already a fringe guy there. It's hard to believe that running a 4.29, posting the things he did, testing the way he did during the questionnaire and the interviews. And as you said, you don't usually get seen on tape if you're performing well as a corner. It's kind of like an offensive lineman. The less you hear your name, the better, just because that means nobody's targeting you. And yeah, I think that's what we saw from Harrison in his whole career. And it's just coming from a place like Kentucky, you don't normally see a corner be the guy that's being looked at from Kentucky. So yeah, it's good to see for him. All these guys really across the board.
And playing at Kentucky, he had no shortage of competition to go against with some of those receivers, like the previously mentioned guys like Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. all of Alabama's receivers, so on and so forth. Like they had
Xavier
definitely
Worthy last year.
last year, exactly. Adonai Mitchell last year, and that's just from Texas and Alabama. We're not even including the rest of those SEC teams, the guys from Ole Miss, so on and so forth. He had plenty of competition during his time at Kentucky to go against. So these are some of the winners, only winners that we had from the NFL Combine. Go ahead and let us know in the comments what players you think stood out and helped themselves going into April's draft. And of course, be sure to stick around here for a lot more draft coverage moving forward. We appreciate y'all so much for hanging out with us, and we'll see you all again next time.